5 Grammy Awards, 20 million records sold, and a voice that, I mean, it sounded like it had been marinating in whiskey and smoke for 50 years, but it was coming from a woman in her early 20s.
It's just an unbelievable sound.
And then just listening to silence.
Yeah, it's one of the most jarring contrasts in the history of modern music, really. On one side, you have this undeniable global superstar.
The critical acclaim, the sales.
All of it. And on the other, you have the stark reality of how it ended. A young woman dying alone, watching her own music videos, surrounded by empty vodka bottles.
That image is, it's so hard to shake. So today we're doing a deep dive into the life and legacy of Amy Winehouse.
Right.
And our mission here is really specific. We're not here to just rehash the tabloid headlines, the beehive, the eyeliner, the chaos. We all remember that.
We all remember.
We want to get past the caricature and understand the actual mechanics of what happened.
Exactly. We're trying to look at the sequence of events, the psychology, the relationships. What took this middle-class Jewish girl from North London and, rocketed her to fame, and then just dismantled her piece by piece.
And we have a pretty comprehensive stack of sources to do this. We're looking at her family history, technical accounts of her recording sessions, the psychology behind that toxic relationship that fueled her biggest hits, and even a minute-by-minute breakdown of her final 24 hours.
It is a heavy story.
Yeah.
There's no getting around that.
Yeah.
But I think the real goal for us today is to look for the why.
Yeah.
Why did this specific talent burn out in this specific way? Was it inevitable, or was it just a series of awful triggers?
So I guess let's start where we have to. The sound.
The voice.
The voice.
Yeah.
Because when you hear Amy Winehouse for the first time, especially on that debut record, it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. You assume she crawled out of a jazz club in, 1950s New Orleans.
Right, but the reality is she was born in 1983 in Southgate, North London, and her background was surprisingly, normal.
Traditional even. Her dad, Mitchell, was a taxi driver.
Her mom, Janice, a pharmacist. I mean, it was a standard Jewish middle-class household. But if you're looking for the root of that sound, you have to look inside that house.
The sources mention her mother, Janice, was always singing.
Constantly, and specifically Frank Sinatra. So Amy was basically absorbing the great American songbook by osmosis. But while her parents provided the soundtrack, the real catalyst, the person who really gave Amy her identity, was her grandmother, Cynthia.
This relationship seems like the absolute linchpin of her early life.
It really was. Cynthia was a former jazz singer herself. She had this glamorous past. She actually dated Ronnie Scott.
Wait, as in the Ronnie Scott of the legendary London Jazz Club.
The very same. So Cynthia wasn't just a grandmother baking cookies. She was a direct link to this golden age of jazz. She represented a world of sophistication and emotional honesty that Amy just idolized.
The sources say her bond with Cynthia was stronger than with her own parents.
Absolutely. Cynthia was the anchor.
Which becomes so critical later on when that anchor is gone. But looking at her childhood, it wasn't all smooth jazz. There was a rupture in the family that seems to have left a mark.
Yeah, when Amy was 9, her parents divorced. Her father was having an affair. Now, the split was described as quiet. There was no shouting or throwing plates. But the emotional impact on Amy was profound. She felt that void.
It's interesting, though, she didn't just become depressive, she rebelled. And I found this detail completely unexpected. At age 10, she forms a rap group.
Sweet and sour.
Sweet and Sour. It sounds like a joke, but I think it actually tells you something really important about her. She wasn't just a jazz purist.
That is a great point. She was listening to Salt and Pepa and Sarah Vaughan. She had this huge musical appetite. And that rebellion just escalated. She got into the prestigious Sylvia Young Theater School, but she just couldn't toe the line.
Expelled at 15, right?
Yep. For piercing her nose and, quote, lacking discipline. She just didn't fit. But this is where the Amy Winehouse we know really starts to form. She becomes this walking contradiction.
That feels like the defining trait of her whole career. The contradiction.
Completely. Musically, she's got the phrasing of a 60-year-old jazz veteran.
Okay.
But personally, she's a modern London teenager. Loud, swears, has this total street attitude.
And that specific mix is what caught the industry's attention. Because it wasn't an act.
No, it's totally authentic. Her boyfriend at the time, Tyler James, passed her demo to a manager, Nick Godwin. And Godwin's reaction is just fascinating. He realizes he's looking at a unicorn.
What was it that struck him? Was it just the voice?
The voice, yes, but also the whole package. Godwin noted she didn't try to hide her tattoos or clean up her language for the suits. You got to remember the context here, the early 2000s.
The pop princess era. Brittany, Christina.
Exactly. Very polished, very manufactured, and Amy was just raw. And Godwin saw that risk, that attitude, as her biggest asset. She was the antidote to the pop star.
So they sign her, and this leads to her debut album, Frank. They send her to Miami to work with Salam Remy.
A real heavyweight. He worked with Fugees, he knows soul, he knows hip-hop. And this story from Remy is one of my favorites because it shows her technical skill, which often gets lost in all the drama. By 2003, auto-tune is everywhere. Producers are used to fixing everything.
And Amy walks in.
And just nails it. Remy said she recorded vocals perfectly in one take. Perfect rhythm, perfect pitch. He was bracing himself for a long session of fixes, and instead he just sat back and hit record. He'd never seen anything like it from someone so young.
So Frank comes out in 2003. It's a success. She wins an Ivor Novello Award. And this success brings money, which brings independence.
Right. And she buys a flat in Camden.
And we need to talk about Camden. For anyone who doesn't know London in the mid-2000s, Camden wasn't just a neighborhood. It was a character in her story.
It was the epicenter of this chaotic creativity. Full of artists and musicians, sure, but also awash in drugs and a 247 party culture. For Amy, it was the perfect escape. It was freedom. It's where she met the person who would become the co-author of her tragedy.
Blake Fielder Civil.
Blake. The sources describe him as magnetic, dangerous. He was a production assistant, bit of a hanger-on.
But she was just drawn to him.
Right.
Dumped Tyler James, the guy who helped launch her career, to be with Blake.
Instantly.
Yeah.
And this relationship marks a huge shift. It goes from partying to something much, much darker.
It's a steep drop-off.
A very steep drop-off.
Yeah.
Blake introduced her to hard drugs crack, heroin, and heavy drinking just became their baseline. But the most dangerous part wasn't just the substances, it was the psychology. Amy developed this belief, this creative paradox, that she needed the dysfunction.
The whole tortured artist myth, the idea that if you're not bleeding, you're not creating.
Precisely. She convinced herself that she couldn't write real, authentic music without chaos and turmoil. Her pain was her raw material. If things were calm, she couldn't write.
That is a terrifying rationalization for addiction. It's basically an incentive to destroy yourself for your job.
And it did destroy her physically. She developed severe eating disorders, bulimia, anorexia.
Yeah.
In 1 year, she dropped 6 dress sizes.
6 sizes? That's shocking.
People saw it. Her manager, Nick Godwin, he tried to step in. He went to her parents, tried to stage interventions, but Amy just reacted with aggression. She insisted she had it under control. She saw any attempt to help as an attack.
But then the cycle breaks, just for a moment. Blake leaves her.
He leaves her for another woman in 2006. And for Amy, this was cataclysmic. She was heartbroken, humiliated, just spiraling.
And she took all of that energy, all that pain.
And walked into a studio with Mark Ronson.
Which gives us Back to Black. And I think we need to talk about why this album works so well. Because it's not just sad songs.
No, it's a very specific sonic choice.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to give Ronson credit here. He didn't just record her songs, he built a sonic world around them. He used the Dap Kings to create this wall of sound, like a 1960s girl group.
Yes, Shangri-La's, Motown. The music is so upbeat, almost danceable, but the lyrics are just gut-wrenching.
That contrast is everything. Take Rehab. Musically, it's catchy, it's fun.
It makes you want to move.
Exactly. But lyrically, it's a literal transcript of her refusing life-saving help. They tried to make me go to rehab. I said, no, no, no.
It's so ironic that the whole world was dancing to her refusal to get help. We were all tapping our feet to her self-destruction.
That's the tragedy of it. Back to Black sells 20 million copies. She wins 5 Grammys. She is the biggest star on the planet. But, and here's the cruel twist, that success is exactly what brings Blake back into her life.
Because now she has the fame, the money.
Precisely. He comes back, she takes him back, and they get married in Miami in 2007. And the marriage just, it legitimized their mutual destruction. It locked them into this sealed ecosystem of drug abuse.
And this is when it all goes very, very public. The photos from that era, it wasn't rumors anymore.
It was inescapable. Blake eventually gets arrested and goes to jail, leaving Amy alone with her addictions. And then, in November 2008, the final emotional safety net snaps.
Her grandmother dies.
Cynthia passes away. Remember, her anchor. The one person she might have listened to. With Cynthia gone and Blake in jail, Amy just completely unraveled, and that's when we saw those public meltdowns.
The behavior got so erratic. I remember the Q Awards incident.
Where she yelled at Bono to shut up.
That's the one. At the time, people sort of laughed it off as rock and roll, but looking back...
It was an attitude. It was a loss of control. There was a concert in Birmingham where she vomited on stage after 2 songs. The audience booed her. And then you have the Rock in Rio Festival in 2008.
That sounded like an absolute nightmare.
It was a disaster. She was 35 minutes late, couldn't stand up straight. Her backing singers were literally holding her up. Her voice, an incredible instrument, was gone, just raspy.
And the crowd turned on her.
They started throwing bottles. The organizers had to cut the mic and kill the lights. It was public humiliation on a global scale. And her body was just shutting down.
She was diagnosed with emphysema in her mid-20s.
Think about that. Emphysema. It's from the crack smoke, the cigarettes. Doctors told her straight up, if you don't stop, you will die within years.
But she didn't stop. And so we get to the final phase. Blake gets out of jail, but he files for divorce.
Which is rich, considering he's the one who introduced her to the hard stuff.
So she signs the papers. She actually tries to clean up a bit, right? She goes to St. Lucia.
She did. She got off the hard drugs. She started dating a film director, Red Travis, a clean living guy. Her parents genuinely thought, okay, this is the turnaround.
But the alcohol was still there, it just replaced the drug?
It did. And then the relationship with Reg fell apart. He cheated on her. And when she found out, she went straight back to the bottle. And that leads us to the final tragic attempt at a comeback, Belgrade, June 18th, 2011.
This was supposed to be a massive tour, a big return.
It ended before it began. In Belgrade, she was too drunk to perform. Security had to carry her onto the stage.
The details from that night are they're so sad. She sat on a monitor.
Refused to sing, threw her shoe at the audience. She was just mumbling into the mic. It was the absolute bottom. The tour was canceled immediately. Her career was, for all intents and purposes, over.
Which brings us to the final 24 hours. The sources give us a really clear timeline here.
It starts with a visit to her mother, Janice. Amy just showed up, unannounced, disheveled, bruising on her face. And she was talking about this delusional plan to record a new jazz album.
It's heartbreaking that even then she was still thinking about the music, still trying to be the artist.
Her mom knew. Janice said she looked at her and knew she wasn't capable of it. But she didn't want to fight. They hugged goodbye. That was the last time she saw her.
And a doctor visits her that evening.
Dr. Romette, yeah. She saw Amy around 7:30. Amy was drunk, but coherent. The doctor left her number, said to call if she needed anything, and left around 10 p.m.
Thinking she was safe for the night.
But she wasn't. She was alone in her bedroom. Her security guard was downstairs with instructions to just let her sleep.
And what she was doing in that room. This is the detail that it breaks your heart.
It is the defining image of her tragedy. She was sitting in bed watching her own old music videos on YouTube.
Watching herself.
Watching a version of herself that didn't exist anymore. Watching the glory days while drinking vodka straight from the bottle. No mixers. Just drinking herself to oblivion while staring at her past.
Did she reach out to anyone?
She sent one text at 3 a.m. to a friend.
What did it say?
The source doesn't say, only that she sent it. And she got no reply.
Wow.
And that might have been it. The alcohol poisoning caused her breathing to stop. The security guard found her the next morning. Gone.
It just forces you to rethink the whole story. We started this talking about the sweet and sour girl full of life, and we end with her dying alone, watching her past on a computer screen.
It really highlights the cost of that kind of artistry. The sources draw a parallel to Whitney Houston, another huge talent who lost a battle with very similar demons.
It makes you wonder about us, the audience, too. We consumed that pain. We gave her Grammys for it.
We did. And it brings us back to that creative paradox. Amy claimed she needed the chaos to create. But the thought I'm left with is, did the very chaos she invited for the sake of the art make it impossible for the artist to survive the art?
Can you separate the music from the pain, or does the pain eventually just consume the person? That is really something to think about.
It is.
Thank you for listening to this deep dive. It's a tragic story, but an important one.
Take care of yourselves out there.
We'll see you next time.